All right, and welcome to this is now the fourth 2021 preview for teams that are no longer involved in the 2020 playoff race, so we have something to look forward to. Welcome, Robert Chapman, GM of the Kansas City Royals. Appreciate you making some time for me today, man.
Yeah, no problem.
Excellent. So before we get into 2021, which is what we were really focused on, I want to take a quick second to break down 2020. You currently sit at, where did I write this down? 1685 in third place in the American League Central. And seemingly have embraced a let the kids play attitude. Are the Royals where you thought they'd be in 2020?
Well, yes and no. I was left a pretty good team for 2019. At least I thought. On paper, we looked really good. I was planning on just maintaining what had been built here. But 2 months into the season, we were terrible. So I started breaking down, but I didn't really commit myself to the rebuild till December or so, where I formulated a plan and put that into action. So I knew that this year we would be at the bottom of the division. I'm surprised that we are ahead of Detroit. I think they look a lot better than us on paper, but maybe my guys are just a little more hungry or something. I don't know.
Yeah, Detroit's just changing things up at a rapid pace, right? I think that week to week, Jim's got his own ideas. We mentioned kind of the let the kids play thing. I know you've been posting a ton about the war of the rookies and how they're stepping up. Where did you decide to pull some of these kids up? Because, I mean, there's some 20-year-old arms in your rotation. Casey Mize has been letting himself go through. What was the thought process there?
So it's all about the money, really. I have very little money invested in scouting, and I have very little money invested in development. And I knew that if I'm doing a rebuild, that those are two things that you have to have. And so I just tried to cut salary anywhere I could, which means I needed cheap players, and cheap players are often young players. I had a couple veterans that I thought would be okay. Like I was paying Mark Trumbo like $1 million, and or maybe he's like $3 million. But then I had Matt Kemp was making like $1 million. But they've just been putting up awful numbers. I think right now, Trumbo this year is batting 183, and he only has 7 home runs and 316 at bats or plate appearances, and Kemp's only batting 204. So when the guys you're paying are that bad, you might as well bring up some young guys. And everyone I promote for at least the first 2 weeks would do really well. Then they would kind of cool off. But that's how that started. I was able to make some deals and get rid of a lot of the higher salary players. I'm retaining a little bit of salary, but that'll all be gone next year. So I'm kind of looking forward to being done with guys like Kemp and Trumbo and seeing how the young guys do next year.
Yeah, I'm sure. I mean, as I'm looking up and down this roster, there's guys like Jeffrey Sherman who are playing very well. He's 25, right? So he's in that middle range, but it's nobody's really heard of him, I'd imagine, outside of Kansas City. Billy Brown's got his chance up here. Sergio Pagan has played very well in a 25 game sample size. Juan Ruiz has been acceptable. The one I'm noticing, though, is that nobody's driving in runs.
No.
they're big on base, but there's not a lot of run production here. So that eventually, I'm sure. But the one guy specifically I wanted to ask a question about is Chris Rivers. The guy he's been 26 games at 14 starts, sporting a 6.27 ERA. Is he somebody that you expect back in 2021, or is he just had to go over here?
Yeah, right now, our pitching staff for the next few years, I think we're going with what we got right now. Vance Worley is one of those veterans I signed just to eat some innings, and he's now moved to the pen. He started really well. He was 5-1 after his first 8 starts, but then his next 8 starts, he was 0-4. And so he pushed to the pen, and guys like Rivers, Neal, Ryan Weathers is a guy that my scouts like a lot more than the numbers I'm getting, but he's also really young. But my current rotation right now, which is Mize, Weathers, Tillman, Neal, Rivers, is probably going to be the exact same next year. The bullpen's going to look almost the same. We're losing O'Flaherty, thank God. He's been awful. And one other guy, let's see, Drew Storen, who's he's been okay. those two guys will be let go in the free agent market. And I got a couple of young guys from Omaha that I think will do well, taking their place. John Lee, who is a 23-year-old, just drafted in 2019 with my 3rd round pick. He's got 75 stuff already. He's got 26 saves in Omaha and a 3.40 ERA. He's going to take one of those spots probably, unless, injuries or something weird happens. And then I got a kind of an older guy, Ian Kendall, who's just been floating around. He's like a 4A player kind of thing, but he's probably going to take the other spot unless somebody else steps up. So my staff next year is almost the same.
Yeah, that's interesting. I just had that same conversation. Oh, goodness, who the hell was I just talking to? With the Brewers. Very same situation, right? They've got a young staff. They've called up their guys. These are their horses that they're expecting to be with for the next couple of years, and they're ready to rock. So that's a fun thing to look at. Looking at 2021, right, knowing that you are where you are, about 60 wins. Let's say you finish about 65 this year. What's the total you're gunning for in 2021? What's the win total?
My goal is probably unrealistic, but my goal is to win 81 games. I'll be happy with anything over 70. If we're below 70, I'm just going to I'll look at, are they close losses? I just don't want to be getting blown out all the time.
Yeah.
We've done a massive ticket price cut to try to get fans in the stands, and we'll have a small increase next year. So hopefully that'll help us with the revenue. Eventually my plan is to make enough money to complement my young players with some stars, but obviously that won't be happening next year.
Yeah, they're few and far between on the free agent market. It's one of those days you have to trade for stars.
Yeah.
And it's either they make a shitload of money and you just kind of got to eat it, or they get them young, and that's the tough part. 81 wins, if this league repeats itself, puts you in 3rd place in the American League Central, right? Assuming Minnesota doesn't turn the roster over, which they're going to need to if they want to get to 80 wins. Cleveland and Chicago are both going to finish above 90 this year. So is that about where you're expecting to finish in Central in 3rd place, kind of on the outside looking in for a wild card spot at 80-something wins?
That's my optimistic goal.
Sure.
I don't know if I'm going to be able to do that. I do think I've been reading a lot on theory, and I think if I can decrease my strikeouts and other non-productive outs, I can do a lot better. I'm looking at having a much higher on-base percentage. I've had problems getting runs, and it's weird. Like we're 11th in runs scored, but we're 7th in average, and 4th in stolen bases, and 10th in on-base percentage. And I don't know why we get guys on and leave them so much, but I think a lot of it has to do with just those strikeouts. Got a lot of guys either we're on pace to strike out 150 times or currently are. And I want to get rid of those guys.
Yeah, that'd be nice, I'm sure. That's kind of what I assumed, right? I think it'd probably be the biggest win jump in the league year over year, unless you think the Tigers can make a big jump, right, which they have much further to go, but I think they could probably jump into that 70 wins depending on what they pull in the offseason. Jim seems hell-bent on competing in 2021. So you have very aggressive goals, which I love. We've already talked about your rotation relatively staying the same. Let's shift our focus then to your lineup, right, which seems to be where you're struggling to produce runs.
Yeah. And
guys there now, is there somebody in-house that you think can solve these problems, or will you be active on the trade market in the offseason?
I probably won't be very active on the trade market. I think since the beginning of August, we've actually done a lot better. We've scored 5 runs each of the last few days, and had a lot of double-digit performances last month, which is kind of in line with as we've replaced a lot of these other players. So if my young guys can kind of keep doing what they're doing, you mentioned earlier, like Pagan has had a good start. He's hitting 315. And I'm looking at Billy Rounds as probably one of my top prospects for next year, maybe making a run at Rookie of the Year. He's got fantastic speed, fantastic defense, and he's pretty good hitter. He didn't knock any socks off of anybody in AAA. He hit 289 with 15 home runs, but my scouts really like him. He'll probably end up being my starting center fielder next year. I really like my outfield. It'll probably be Blanchard, Rounds, and Pagan next year in the outfield.
I was going to ask, where's that with Sherman? If Round starts in center, you got to move Blanchard to the left, I'd assume. Pagan's in right. Where does Sherman go?
Well, Sherman might actually play some left. Also, some of these we're gonna have to do some DHing with the outfield with the fourth outfielder. I've got another guy in Omaha who I really want to see, Luke Musgrave.
I was going to ask about him as well. Yep.
He's only 20. He's not fully developed yet, but he's got a bright future at the plate, I think. And he's got a killer arm, good, decent range, and probably will pull up his current outfield ratings and be a good candidate to start in the field. But so maybe I'll use a guy's trade bait. Maybe let's have some depth. I don't know. It's going to be better than this year when I was choosing between guys that were going to strike out all the time.
Yeah. You also have a guy named Alex Kirilloff, who I think is a very intriguing player down at AAA, who's shown a higher level of success than Musgraves has, right? Musgraves has not been there long, but Kirilloff's hitting 287 over a couple of months. That's not bad. He's a guy that I would assume gets a look in spring.
Yeah, Kirilloff is our second-round pick last year, so he's definitely high on our list. I think what I don't like about him is, maybe it's not as bad as I was thinking. He was the slow guy. I got an outfielder who's just dreadfully slow.
Bob Collins.
Yeah, is that Collins? Okay. I was like, I love this guy, except for he can't run.
Yeah.
But yeah, Kirilloff's another guy that should be able to make a move. I'll have to, have some tough choices to make. I just moved this week. Arnold Moser, another outfield prospect. My plan was for next year to platoon Eric Hosmer, who we signed as a free agent late this year. He was doing awful in Memphis, and they let him go. He was hitting 194 in Memphis. They let him go. We picked him up. He hit 371 in 15 games in Omaha. Then we promoted him, and he's hit 292 in the big leagues in 27 games with 8 home runs, and he leads my team in RBI since he's been picked up. We're going to platoon him, and my plan was with David Moyne, but Moyne's just been awful this year in Omaha. So I'm going to have Hosmer and Arnold Moser platooning at first base. And Moser is a decent hitting prospect, and he's he's one of those, I like to call him heady players, who's one of those intelligent guys.
Yeah.
But he's not great defensively. So he'll be moved over to first base. Should give me room for another outfielder, but I don't know.
He's also 27, right? So he's not.
He's not a young.
You have a Hosmer's on the plans to play at 30. Andres Peraza, who's been very, very good. I think he was an all-star this year. Is entering his year 31 season next year. So you do have some guys that are up there, in age. The good news is you got a guy like Hagen Danner, David Davies, Juan Aparicio, who are in the minors that can come up and replace Esperanza down the line, hopefully. But who do you think has an outside shot? We talked about some specific guys. Who's got that outside shot to come to spring and get the invite to the big league club? And what do they have to show you in spring to stick with the club?
I would say both Kirilloff and Musgrave have an outside shot with a big spring to come in and make the team. I'm not real high on any of my middle infield prospects. David Davies, though, if he steps forward at catcher, he could push for a spot. That's really it. I think because so many of my top prospects have just recently made the move up, there's not a whole lot I'm looking at that might have a shot. Not really seeing much on the pitching side. But yeah, I would definitely say that Kirilloff and Musgrave both have a shot to make the team in spring.
Yeah, I think I agree with your sentiment. You're going to have a difficult outfield decision to make, assuming everyone hits in spring, with about 5 or 6 really talented guys who need bats, right? So you're going to have to send somebody back to AAA, or maybe you can package one of these guys with something else and grab yourself a middle infield prospect. Because believe it or not, this league's got a ton of them out there, more than they used to have. And the outfield is drying up at those lower levels, so that might be an interesting thing for the Royals to look at.
Yeah, and there's going to be one roster spot open in the outfield as Kemp moves on.
It's fair play.
So I kind of, I don't know, between Kirilloff or Musgrave. I don't know who has the edge right now on that spot, but
I think that's a spring decision, right? I think
yeah.
you've seen enough out of both these guys, and they're in a place where they are good. It's going to be fun to watch them compete with some of the guys that have really proved themselves up at the major league level this year.
Yeah, and I also have to weigh between being the fifth outfielder and not playing a whole lot versus starting every day in AAA, especially at the age these guys are at. That'll definitely play a factor if I think I can get them enough playing time in the bigs.
Yeah, that's always the tough part. Can you find it bad? That's a good place to be, but I feel like that's where a lot of these rebuilding teams find themselves. With everybody starts to hit it once, and then you've got to take your decision about who goes up first, who comes down, how quickly do you pull the trigger here, right? I know that the Braves are in that situation with second baseman right now with Bo Bichette and Noah Thomas and a couple other guys all kind of right there. So it's fun, but it's hectic.
Yeah.
When you look at 2021, who is your early pick for? Let's start with Rookie of the Year. Who's your early Rookie of the Year pick for 2021?
I would say, are you talking about league wide or on my team? You're talking about league wide.
Yeah, just for you.
Just for me, it would be probably Billy Rounds. Just I have high expectations for him.
Do you see him as a get on base and like high stolen base guy, great defense in the outfield, like 240, 250 hitter, somewhere like that, and just creates havoc? Is that what we're looking at with him?
Well, my scouts like him to be more than a 240, 250 hitter. I think he's going to be a 280, 290 guy with 35 doubles, probably 15 home runs. He's got the 70 speed and stealing, so I think he should be a good base stealer too. I'm looking at changing managers to somebody that might run a little more aggressively than my current philosophy on my team is, so that would play into it too. But yeah, I think he'll be a fantastic center fielder with good speed, and I think he'll push 280, 290.
Yeah, there's a strong sentiment in this league that stealing bases is overrated, right? There's a lot of baseball traditionalists here, but if you look at it empirically, the Diamondbacks this year are dominating the National League because they run a ton. Last year, the Rockies ran a ton and dominated the National League. In 2018, the Braves ran a ton and dominated that National League. So maybe it's a National League thing. I would argue in OTP world, at least, that running is super, super efficient, and there's a real correlation there between success and running. So I like the thought process.
Yeah, and especially I'm not going to be able to afford to get big sluggers, so I can find guys that can run and make them run and hopefully not run into outs very often.
Yeah, that's the big one. Who is the 2021 Cy Young?
On my team, I'm gonna say Casey Mize. I feel like he's the guy that our scouts like the best of my starters. So yeah, I'd say Mize.
Yeah, I think he has a shot to win a real Cy Young one day down the line. Probably not next year, but I like his stuff. I think he's a great, great piece. And then finally, 2021 MVP for the Royals.
So despite having all those great outfielders, it's a chance for me to plug Gustavo Lopez. I think he's got a shot to be the American League Rookie of the Year this year.
Yep.
And I just like what he brings at shortstop. He's got 25 stolen bases. He's batting .309. He leads the team with 72 RBIs, leads the team with 65 runs. He's definitely our MVP this year, and I think next year he'll be just as important for us.
Yeah, I know you dangled him a little bit, really, really quietly approaching the deadline. I'm glad you kept him. I think he's a fun player. He looks to me like if he can add a little bit more power, he looks like an Ozzie Albies type player, but it's short as opposed to second base. So I really, really like him for the future. So that is perfect, man. That is the 2021 preview for you. Last thing before I let you go back to work, who wins the World Series in 2020?
Chicago.
Wow,
I'd be a homer.
I love it. That's the first White Sox thing. Hodge would love that. He does that kind of stuff. That's perfect. We've had Seattle, we've had the Mets, and we've had Chicago as the three answers I've gotten. So I've not gotten a repeat yet.
Yeah, I really like Seattle, but I'm going to go with the homer pick and say the Central wins.
They're so good. Any final words before I let you go?
Vote for Gus Lopez for American League Rookie of the Year. That's all I got.
All right, I appreciate it. I'm going to get out. Have a good rest of your day. Good weekend.
Thanks.
We'll talk to you later, man.
All right. Thanks.
Yeah.